The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Well, hey, everybody, and happy holidays to you. It's Sandy, and
it's Dave, too, making a guest appearance. It's been a while.
Yeah, well, we're taking pretty much the month off, Todd and I, for in between seasons and for the holiday break. We wanted to just kind of do a quick bonus episode and talk about something that we've been sort of more aware of lately, that we're kind of making plans. We've sort of been, inspired by it.
Well, we haven't exactly watched a whole lot of television when it comes to like the typical network episodic television or Netflix. We've watched a couple of Netflix series, a couple of YouTube series, but we did stumble upon a couple that we have kind of watched more than others.
Yeah, so I'm going to backtrack this a little bit for everybody. Several months ago, we decided to get rid of Spectrum. And we decided to get a Fire Stick, an Amazon Fire Stick?
Right.
Okay. So a Fire Stick, just in case you're not clear, it's like the Roku 2. You can download apps onto your TV. And we just got a new TV probably 4 or 5 months ago, a huge TV, that we can download apps and different things onto. And so one of them is YouTube. And we have been watching a ton of YouTube lately. And I've always watched YouTube. I have my favorite channels. But we've together been watching a lot more of it lately. And some of the channels that we've been watching, and I know Todd and I have talked about this a few times on the show, is some of the paranormal TV show stars, if you will, like Jason Hawes, Katrina Weidman, and they now, because their shows, because of you know who, they have decided to primarily do things on YouTube, which is a bonus for us. Oh, and the Project Fear people, too, who used to be Destination Fear. They do it, too. And that's been a bonus for us in the sense that, and for them, in the sense that once the networks were taken out of it, they had much more free reign over how they present investigations or paranormal content. And it's just great. They have some fantastic channels. And so highly recommend it.
And they're a lot more low key.
Right.
They're not as polished as the typical ones that they had. So they're a little bit more realistic. They're a little bit more real. They're a little bit more bringing out the personality of the actual person doing it, like Jason or Dalen, those kind of people. Instead of it being a packaged show with the kind of factor, it's a lot more real.
Right. It's not that... I don't want to say that the shows on the networks are quote unquote fake in any way, but they are heavily edited because you have to take 2 days sometimes worth of investigating and bring them down into a half hour, including commercials, or an hour, including commercial show. And so they only find the most dramatic parts. And anybody who's investigated, you and I have been investigating for several years, we know that that's not what it's about. We know that sometimes it's just kind of wandering around, talking to yourself, sitting there in the dark, in quiet, and not getting much of anything. And even though some people may think that's boring, it's actually relatable to people who have experienced it themselves.
And relatable is a good word because a lot of it seems to be much more one-on-one. Jason Hawes, just he and his buddy. It's just the two of them, 2 cameras. Dalen Spratt, it's just him and 1 camera. So it is a lot more relatable. It's a lot more one-on-one.
So it's great. And we've been watching a lot of their channels. And also, while you brought up Dalen Spratt, I wanted to talk about Dalen Spratt today. So if you don't know the name Dalen Spratt, you probably know the name The Ghost Brothers. And they did a few seasons on network TV, Ghost Brothers, and they are amazing. They're these 3 black guys who, and I only say that because they sort of break some of the, I don't know if stereotypes is the word, but you don't see a lot of African American people doing ghost hunting at that level. And so they were great because they were sort of like, they were just so much fun to watch when they had the Ghost Brothers shows. And they had a sense of humor about it. They didn't take themselves or each other too seriously, but yet they got some incredible evidence and they put together a fantastic show. And of course, they had to go by the wayside too, like most paranormal shows these days, had to go by the wayside. And Dalen Spratt, who was sort of the fearless leader and a little bit more the Abbott to the other 2 guys, Costellos, he has his own channel now. It's under Dalen Spratt. It's Dalen, last name Spratt. I love this channel, Dave. I absolutely love this channel. We watch this channel a lot.
Yeah, he's pretty straightforward, where the Ghost Brothers were a little more comedic and, again, a little bit more television showish. One guy was the scaredy cat. One guy was the leader. And it was fun to watch.
Oh, without
But this
a doubt.
is just a completely different angle.
And I like it because, so Dalen was essentially the leader. He was the leader of the group. And he was a little more straightforward with everything. And he sort of brought that over into this. Now, he calls his group of followers, he calls everybody, us, the graveyard shift. And what he does, and this is one of the reasons, speaking of relatable, everybody knows that you and I now, for several years, we visit cemeteries. I tend to be incredibly respectful of the people that are there. And because we're not there for thrills, it's much more of a personal thing, especially for me. So we tend to go and tell their stories. We tend to go to cemeteries to learn about their stories because Todd and I, you and I, the 3 of us together have always talked about how important history is. And there's a saying, and I can't remember it word for word, but it's something to the effect of you die twice. The first time when you physically pass away. The second time is the last time that someone talks about you or says your name. And that's always hit home for me. And so that's why you and I have done this so many times, is to go and find out the stories and to tell the stories. And even when you and I were out in Wisconsin a couple times, we've done that with Todd.
And of course, a lot of people look at cemeteries as this morbid place, this quiet place. Oh, I wouldn't want to go there. But what we've learned out of it is it's almost like a drive-through museum. Yeah. We've gone to cemeteries that we really don't have any ties to, but we'll stop and we'll read, and it's just fascinating. And some of the cemeteries have markers and history, and it makes it even more amazing. And the history that's behind a lot of these, especially older cemeteries, it really, really is like going to a museum.
And 2, I know this might sound weird to some people, but I almost feel welcomed when I go to a cemetery. I almost feel like, even if you never met these people in real life and they passed away in 1786 or 1829, it's like a, come in, you're welcome to be here. It's never, I think I've only, in all the years that I've been going to cemeteries, there was only one time that I was ever, and it was in Oakland Cemetery, and you know the story well, a couple of years ago, and I had kind of an unsettling experience where I kept hearing someone walking through the fall leaves coming towards me across, like, it wasn't really a road, it was more like a drivable pathway. And I kept looking over there because it sounded like someone was coming out from behind the trees walking towards me. Nobody ever, and we're right next to Syracuse University at Oakwood Cemetery. So I half expected to see a student walking out because you always see students from next door walking through the cemetery. They do sketching. They do all kinds of stuff there. Never saw anybody. And that was a little unsettling experience for me. But I will say this. that I have never felt unwelcome in a cemetery. And how many of us can say that in regular life? So to kind of sum all that up, we go and we speak to the people who have passed away. And a lot of times, we were just talking about this last night, a lot of times it's based on who I'm drawn to. I might be drawn to a certain area, and then that's where we'll go. I, kind of use my abilities. And we've had some amazing luck with it. And so to tie it all back into Dalen, that's what he does. And you can tell it's much more personal for him than someone going to try to find thrills. And I really like what he does because he's also trying to bring you, the watcher, in with him. And he brings the group, the graveyard shift people, and he finds people who have interesting stories to tell. And he uses the spirit box to try to communicate with them. And he's also done some walkthroughs of some very well-known haunted places. He did the Sorrel Weed House in Savannah, which we have not been inside of, but we've been to Savannah twice. And so we know the home, we know the history. So that was really cool. And he's got several videos. He puts a lot of videos out. And so I don't know, I just really highly recommend watching Dalen Spratt's channel because it really is cool. And he gets some good stuff out of it. He's
got a very personal approach. We watched the John Dillinger episode as well.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. He doesn't pretend. He doesn't try to be funny. He doesn't try to put on an entertainment show. He just basically will grab his iPad and the Spirit Box app that's on there, and he talks to the viewers. He talks to what he hopes to be as the spirits. And I think he does a good job because I just like the low-key, laid-back approach. And again, because it is YouTube and it's not network television, he can pretty much do it the way he feels best about it.
Right. And let me just, before we wrap up, let me just give 2 points that you just made me think of. Number one, a lot of people think, well, why would the spirits be in the cemetery? It's their dead body. But spirits, in my experience, and I always preface everything within my own experience, my personal experiences, spirits can come and go. And I've always said this, that if you're paying attention to them, if you're acknowledging them, if you're honoring them in any way, why wouldn't they want to come and be with you and try to communicate with you? When you are obviously trying to tell them their story, learn their story from them, and then tell their story and pass it on, why wouldn't they want to come and be with you? We've had some amazing, amazing conversations with people who have passed on in cemeteries. And so, first of all, it is always possible to run into someone at a cemetery. And I won't say that it happens every time, because we've had times where I've been drawn to a grave for whatever reason and I can't get any activity, but I'll go to another grave 3 minutes later and have full-on conversations through K2 meter, Mel meter. We've done a couple spirit box sessions before, which reminds me, the other thing about Dalen is you may not be used to this. Everybody, for the most part, knows about regular spirit box sessions where you have the white noise in the background. And just a heads up, Dalen uses what looks to be an app on his iPad and then a speaker. And this is not, I bought, I think it's an SB11 a few years ago. And what the SB11 does is it takes out the white noise. But for me personally, and my own techniques and my own abilities, I didn't really care for that as much, because to me it almost cuts off some of the wording when it comes through, because it's canceling out all that white noise in between. So I much prefer the one that has the white noise in it, but you can definitely hear things come through clearly here and there when Dalen does it with the app that he has that eliminates the white noise. So there's just a couple of notes. But overall, just a fantastic, fantastic channel.
Well, and from what you were talking about with spirits, who's to say where they are or where they aren't? It's just kind of opening your mind and opening your thoughts and beliefs to what may be or what may not be.
Truth is, Dave, we have no idea about any of this. We can only speculate
Right.
and speak from our own personal experiences. So we have no real idea what they can and can't do, how they can do it, only what we ourselves experience in that moment. It also reminded me about a wonderful friend and listener, Stephanie, who is going through a bit of a rough patch right now. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's going through the treatments, and she is not only an amazing person, but an amazing fighter. And so I just want to give my love and a big shout out to Stephanie. I say, warrior, you got this. You can do this. So much love to you, Stephanie. And just much love to everybody. And thank you guys for following us. And that's all. That's all. Happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays indeed. Our thoughts and energy with you, Stephanie, and everyone else. And have a great new year as well.
Yep. And Todd and I will be back. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.